Hello all, welcome to our Targets Explore event on how to attract and retain the best talent in our ecosystem. I'm Lorena, leading the People and Culture function at Talent Garden. Very happy to facilitate this session today. Very relevant topic for all of us, where nowadays we all, and most of the people, change roles and jobs from 3 to 7 times in our professional lives compared to old times where people remain in their jobs for 10, 15 or even more years. So very relevant topic that we are dealing today. And also nowadays where hopefully COVID will be left behind, hopefully very soon, and for sure there will be a reactivation in the job market. So we all need to get ready for it. We have 2 special guests for today's session. Anne-Christine from Ethan Partners. She is co-founder and partner of Ethan Partners, a global executive search firm focused in the digital space. They have secured more than 150. They have worked for more than 150 internet companies, among them Uber or Zalando. And also we have with us today another special guest, Mattia Riba. That is the CEO of One Day Group, a business and a community builder focused on direct-to-consumer services for young generations. So the agenda for today, first, Anne-Christine will be sharing with us 10 golden tips and tricks on how to find, attract, and retain talents from her experience as executive firm in the tech sector. And then Mattia will be sharing with us the case of One Day Group, where they place the culture at the very center of all they do. So very, very interesting case. And then finally, we will have our panel discussion with both of them. So One Day Group, Ethan Partners, and myself representing Talent Garden. And I would love you all to start sharing questions in our channel so we can collect all of them by the panel time. Many thanks all for having this time with us, and hope you all enjoy the session. I will leave now the stage with Anne-Christine. Thank you all.
Hi everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Lorena. As mentioned, I will be talking about, or giving good advice to hire and retain talent. I have a few slides prepared, so let's see if we can get the slides on the screen. Yes, great. So brief introduction. I won't spend too much time on that, but as Lorena mentioned, I'm the founder of Ethan Partners. We do executive search, focus on high growth internet companies, and it is the digital space that we focus on. We've worked with more than 150 companies and placed more than 2,000 profiles. And I started the company myself for about 9 years ago. So we hire for our clients, but I've also done a lot of hiring for myself over the years. And prior to starting Ethan Partners, I worked for Rocket Internet for 2 years, where I did a lot of global rollouts and hired in-house. So I've also had the experience of hiring in-house for a startup. And even though Rocket Internet is a very large organization today, when I joined, we were a few thousand people globally. And when I left after 2 years, we were 25,000 people. So a lot of hiring over 2 years, and worked with the global rollouts of Groupon, Zalando, HelloFresh, Glossybox, and many others, hiring in-house. So that was just the intro. So if we can get the next slide. I'm not controlling my slides today. So I'll be giving 10 pieces of advice in terms of hiring. And I'm focusing on startups, but I think everyone who is looking to hire, either as hiring manager or even in a corporate, can use a lot of the advice that I will be sharing with you guys today. So, and there's quite a lot to cover, and we only have 15 minutes. So some of them I'll just go through very briefly, and others I'll touch a bit more upon. But first advice that I always give in terms of hiring is to plan your hiring strategy. And what I mean with that is think ahead. I always recommend 12 months plans. Great if you also have a 3-year plan on the side, but when it is startups, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, the organization will change a lot over time and you can't really plan that far ahead. So I always recommend thinking 12 months ahead and then continuously updating the hiring strategy and the hiring plan. And another thing to mention in terms of planning is when to hire what. And classic mistakes that people make, which is good to be aware of, is, well, don't hire too late. And with that, I think a lot of people, they just estimate how challenging and time consuming it is to hire. On average for us, and we work with recruiting all the time, on average, it takes us 3 months to hire someone. And it can easily take longer. And we hear lots of clients that take up to a year to close a position. So most of the companies that contact us, they are looking to hire yesterday. And given that it does take up to 3 months, it just becomes a very stressful and rushed process when you're a bit late with starting the hiring process. So have that in mind, that it typically takes around 3 months. So plan ahead, so you don't get too pressured for time and then just hire the first and the best candidate that comes in the door, or maybe from the first and the worst candidate that comes in the door. And another thing in terms of when to hire, a classic mistake that we all see is hiring too soon. And what I mean about that is when you are creating your hiring strategy and hiring plan, I think a lot of companies, especially if you haven't, if you're a first-time entrepreneur and you haven't built companies before, or organizations and teams from scratch, there are lots of roles that I think start to think, oh, we need to have that. Or someone tells you, oh, you have to have that. And classic examples can be, okay, oh, we need a CFO, a CMO, we need a head of HR, lots of roles that you hear about. But it might be a bit too early compared to the stage that you're at. It might make sense initially to outsource some of those roles and functions if it's not quite a full-time position. And also for C-level hires, it might make sense, especially in the early days, to hire more junior roles or junior profiles. And then either the profiles or the people can grow into the roles over time, or you can hire more senior profiles once you grow. And I just say that because a lot of startups have a tendency to give away their C-level and VP titles very early stage with young candidates. And then when they really grow and have to professionalize the organization and are looking to hire, I feel wrong to say real C-level, but when you're looking to hire experienced C-level people, it just doesn't look so good that you've had people straight out of uni or people with 2 years experience covering those C-level roles. So think ahead in terms of the titles that you're giving and who you need to hire when. So second advice is understand the position that you are hiring for. And what I mean with that is, of course, I don't think anyone is expected to really understand in depth every position in an organization. And it's very difficult to understand a role if you haven't worked with it before. But if you are to hire for a position, it really requires that you do understand what you're hiring for. Let's put it this way. It minimizes the risk of doing a wrong hire if you just spend some time just looking into what does this position do? What will this person actually be doing? It's a bit the same as a third advice, which is defining the role. A good way to understand a position is to really break down what will this person be doing in the role. And it's much easier to really break down the actual tasks. Just an example, a classic situation can be a startup saying, oh, we have to hire a CMO. And then they create a very broad job description. But a CMO is different for every company. So what will this person actually be doing? What channels will they be focusing on? What channels are relevant? And will they be managing agencies? Will they be doing it in-house? Is it very KPI driven or not at all? Are they managing a large team? So is it, do you focus more on managerial skills, or are they hands-on so that they have to be able to actually do the marketing task themselves? And I say that because it's different requirements to different things, and also to the different stages where you are at as an organization. So, and too often companies haven't, and this is not even just for startups, and it's not just the founders, it's just in general when companies are looking to hire, I think they often don't spend enough time really understanding the positions that they're hiring for, especially positions that are outside the areas that you typically work with. So classic examples would be like tech. If you're hiring for tech, then really understand what will they actually be doing, and break down the task, because it's much easier to hire the right profile when you know what they will actually be doing. And also aligning expectations with candidates if you explain what they'll be doing. And again, a classic example is, let's say you are hiring a CMO, and that sounds great. Oh, you're responsible for all marketing. For someone who works with marketing, and I used to work with marketing, so that's why I'm using this as an example. Sounds great. Wow, I'm joining a startup or an organization. I'm going to be responsible for all marketing. But what does that actually mean? Is there a team there? Are you managing a team? Is it working with all channels? What is the budget that they'll be working with? You need to have all that information, and you need to communicate it so that the candidate knows what the role is. If they're already managing a large team and working with a very large budget, they might not even be hands-on anymore. Then it doesn't make sense to just hire someone, give them a fancy title, and then expect them to just figure it out along the way. I mean, it is what most startups typically do, but that's also why there are a lot of wrong hires and rehires in the early days. So it really pays off. Spend some time defining the role, understanding the position, and aligning that in the recruiting process with candidates. That will save a lot of stress further down the line when they actually join. Fourth advice is spread the word. When you are hiring, what I mean about that is, sometimes we talk to companies, and this can actually be companies that are quite large and well established, and then we say, okay, what have you actually done to find candidates? And a lot of companies say, oh, we posted it on our website. Next question would then be, how much traffic do you actually have to your website? Because you are a startup. So you need to have more channels. It can also be, oh, we just posted a job ad, but everyone who applied weren't really very good. So I always recommend using as many channels as possible. It is time consuming, so I always suggest to test a few channels and then use the channels that work well for your organization. And different channels do also work for different seniority levels and different positions. But I always say, the more you go out and create awareness around the fact that you're hiring and the positions that you're hiring for, the more candidates you'll get. And the more candidates you have, the more you can select the right candidate for the role, or the best candidate for the role. So, yes, once you have all these candidates that have either been sourced or applied or recommended for your network, then it is time to assess them. And this in particular is an area that companies don't spend enough time on. And I completely understand it, because it is very time consuming, and I did not spend enough time on this myself in the early days when I was hiring, or when I was hiring while I was in-house, because pressured for time. But again, with a lot of these suggestions, even though it takes longer time while doing it, it saves time in the long run, because it's really about minimizing the risk in terms of a wrong hire. So what does it mean when I say assessing a candidate, and how do you assess a candidate? So for us, it's always assessing hard skills and soft skills. When it comes to hard skills, it's assessing, are they actually capable of the role? Do they have the skill set or the experience required to be able to do the tasks of the position? And again, the only way you can assess that is by really understanding what the tasks are. So that's why you need to define them before starting the process. So once you have, you align the or test the hard skills, and a lot of that, personally, I like to ask questions about results that candidates have already achieved in previous roles. So if it is for a sales role, you would like to know, how did they do sales? How much sales? What were their KPIs? What were their sales targets? How was the sales process? Because it's different from company to company. And then compare it with what you are looking for in the position that you are looking to hire for. I would say the hard skills, personally, I find that the hard skills are the easiest thing to assess, in the sense that that's not so much based on gut feeling. That's more based on results and things that they've already achieved. So it's in a way easier to measure. Another way to assess hard skills, other than previous experience and results, is to give them tests that are relevant for the position that you are looking to hire for. And I say that because lots of companies have case studies in their hiring process, which is great. But some companies, they just have a standard case study for all hires, or they just have case studies that they maybe found online that aren't necessarily relevant to the tasks that this person will be doing. So I always recommend doing a case study, or just doing an example of work that is relevant for the role. And example could be, if you're hiring someone to do PR, get them to write a press release. Then you can assess if you actually like the way that they write. And if it's tech, you need to check their code and maybe get them to do something that could be relevant for what you are working with. So those were the hard skills. In terms of the soft skills, that is where it becomes challenging, because that's more about personality. And the more you spend time with people, the more you get to know them. In a recruiting process, especially like the first interview round, I think a lot of people are familiar with the fact that it can be quite formal. You go through the standard questions, and I say standard because a lot of people automatically ask the same questions, and we do that as well. It can be like, talk about your previous experience. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I ask all these questions myself, and I think they're great. But the problem with these questions are also that I think a lot of people, they expect that they're coming. They might have, rehearsed them, thought about them, received them before in other interview processes. So they have a good idea of what to respond. So you're not really getting to know a person. So what I always recommend is to spend some time in the recruiting process, to spend some time in a more informal setting. So either, having a lunch together, a dinner, it can be Friday drinks, it can be drinks at the pub, it can be a walk and talk. You need to get people in an environment where it's more relaxed, and where people get to talk, so you can really assess, do you actually like them as people? And I say that because for startups, you are spending a lot of time together. I mean, that goes for any job. It is at least 8 hours a day. And if it's early stage startup, you're probably spending a lot more time together. So make sure that it's actually someone you want to spend time with. And I think also in terms of the soft skills, it's really important that it's someone that you communicate well with, and also someone that fits into the culture of the organization and with the existing team. And usually because we get contacted often with roles where it is a replacement role, and it's very seldom that someone is let go or even leaves because they're not capable of the actual role. it is used, I would say 95% of the time, it's a cultural mismatch. The reason why they're being let go, or the reason why it was a wrong hire. It could also be that someone's grown out of a position, but that's something different. It's more when you're letting someone go, replacing them. It's almost always because it was a wrong cultural fit. So that's why you have to spend time getting to know someone and making sure they fit in. And also, with most companies, there are several people in the management team, and it could also be that there's several founders. So it is important that at least when you're hiring manager level and above, that they interview with at least several people in the management team. And if you are a single founder and you're making your first hire, I always recommend that you include someone in the recruiting process from outside your organization. And that could either be maybe an advisor or an investor. And that is very common. We see that a lot. So it's just always better to have several opinions, or several, that you test someone by several people. So it's not just one person making the decision whether to hire or not. Yeah, and could we get the next slide? Yeah, great. So once you have found someone that you like and that you would like to hire, something that is very important in the hiring process, and you need to do this very early on. You need to do it during the first interview, even if, before you know whether you like someone or not, you need to sell the opportunity. Why should someone join your organization? This is important for every organization out there, for every role that you are hiring for, but for startups, it's even more important because you don't have a brand name behind you that can attract talent. And usually also there's not as much information online about the company. So it's very important that that you communicate to people very early on, what is it that you are looking to achieve and what are your growth plans. And I say that because, again, very often, founders are very passionate, and also management, the management team in an early stage startup or growth startup are very passionate about their own organizations and companies. But I think they forget, because they talk a lot internally, I think they forget that people outside the organization don't know what you are looking to achieve, what you are planning, maybe even the milestones that you've already achieved, unless you're really good at doing PR and marketing and post a lot on your social media. People don't know. So even after the first interview, a candidate should know, what is it you are trying to achieve? Why should they join your organization? What can you offer? And what is it, you have to sell the dream, sell the story, and talk very high level as well, to get people to join. I think that's something that unfortunately a lot of people, they forget to do. So you have to do it throughout the whole process and repeat it. And I have to speed up a bit because I'm running out of time. So culture, company culture, so important for any organization in terms of hiring, but very important for a startup, because a lot of startups, they haven't even thought about culture yet. People are so busy getting the startup off the ground and building the company that they forget to really stop up and assess or define, what is the company culture? And I don't mean doing a lot of surveys, reports, spending months defining culture. It can really be like a weekend session, or even just an afternoon where you sit down, concentrate and define, where are you today? How is the culture? And be honest about how is the culture today? The culture is often defined by the founders and the management team. So be honest about who you are. Then write down, who do you want to be? And of course, it has to be realistic. You can't just change a culture. Culture is something that is organic and that changes over time. and is created by the people involved. But that's why once you are aware of the culture, then you can hire people in that match the culture, that match the current culture, but are also aligned with the culture that you are looking to achieve. And it is very common in companies, and I say this because almost every company I talk to, they have the same, when they explain, we always ask our clients to explain their culture, and most of them say the same thing. But it can't be that all companies are the same, and they never are. So I think, everyone says, oh, we're very hands-on. But what does that actually mean? Who is hands-on and at what time? And does it make sense that everyone's hands-on? Typically, it is necessary early stage, but maybe you get to a stage where it's not really that relevant, and it's more that you're a great manager. So also, a lot of companies say, oh, we work 24/7. But what is 24/7? Because, in some countries, it is a 9 to 5, and then maybe you're available online. And some companies, they really, when they say 24/7, they really expect people to be 24/7 in the office. So you just have to define what do we mean. Another thing is, a common thing right now, and I'm really talking too much here, is people saying, oh, we have flexible working hours. But what does that actually mean? And they say, oh yeah, we have, you can have one day off a month or one day off a week, but is that really flexible? Because there are organizations out there where you could just work remote. So when you are defining, I think you just have to know how is it in reality? How will it be going forward? And communicate that to candidates, because you want someone that's aligned with the way that the culture is. And there's no right culture, no wrong culture. So it's just about matching the right company culture with the right people. So trying to wrap up here, onboarding, the only thing that I'll say is a lot of people spend so much time on hiring people, but then they completely forget to actually onboard them. What I always recommend is just little things make a difference. A little welcome email before people join, make sure that there's a team lunch. I always recommend that you have the first week planned with all tasks and make sure that they get to know everyone on the team, at least when the organization is still small. And to be honest, the first week I would have, either team lunches or make sure that they are paired up with someone to have lunch every day so they're not sitting alone. So the whole first week is planned. Just give them a good start. And then, again, also in terms of retaining employees, because onboarding, that is essentially also working towards retaining, because if people have a bad first week, it can really affect the whole time they're with the company. It's really hard to change first impressions. But other things that are really important in terms of retaining and developing employees, and we get this from feedback of, we've probably done more than 10,000 interviews of candidates. We always ask them, what do you like about your current role? What don't you like? And something that's really important, and especially for young generation, is career progression. So have a very clear career progression plan within the organization. And that is something that most startups don't have. So it doesn't have to be lengthy or anything or take too long, but just have a clear, if they do well within 1 year, then what happens? What can they what can they gain? And I'm not talking salary-wise, I'm talking more in terms of more responsibility. Also, KPIs. It's much easier to measure people and align on expectations when there are clear KPIs to be measured on. And also make sure in terms of the company mission that it is communicated ongoingly to the team and that everyone is on board and knows in which direction the company is going. And the best way to retain employees is to talk with them and communicate and have transparency with them. And probably even more importantly is to listen to them. I know when you are growing and scaling company, I think every founder and every manager knows you get lots of good input from the team, but you can't do everything. I mean, there's not time and there are no resources. So I think encourage employees to come with good ideas, but then of course align expectations in the terms, not everything can be done now, but maybe down the line if it makes sense. Yes, and the final thing that I will mention is learn from others, and it really goes with everything when you're starting and building a company, but especially in terms of hiring. See what other companies have done. When you're creating an org plan, look at other companies who, competing companies or companies that have similar business models. Look at their org structures. How did they grow? Who did they hire? How do they structure their different departments? What do they outsource? Learn from them. Ask questions. Also, when you're hiring for, as I mentioned before, if you're hiring for positions that you are not familiar with, then ask people who work in those functions or those departments what's important when hiring so that you can understand them. Learn from others who've done it before. That is what the final thing that I will say here in terms of giving good advice.
Thank you very much, Ann-Christine. Very nice insights. And for sure, we will have questions for you over the panel. I remind everyone to keep sending their questions while Mattia presents now. So we have some more other questions from the audience for the panel time. So now I will leave the stage to Mattia, who will be sharing the one-day group case. Thanks, Mattia.
Thanks, Lorena. So basically, we are one of the others. So maybe I can give you some insight of how we do what we do. Basically, one day it's a holding. We do community building. We manage few communities, specifically related to a target group, which is younger generations. And we do that from 9 years old to basically 35 years old. Within our brands, the way we do community building is that we divide digital and physical. So we give experience on one side physically, and we do also manage a lot of media assets. We have 11 million followers in Italy only, just to give you an idea, in the younger generation target. But coming to the topic of today, I think, I want to kind of relate to few insights that Ann-Christine gave before, mainly on 3 topics. One is culture. Another one is process, which mix a lot of things that Ann-Christine discussed before. And the last one is our specific community approach, because I think that's our key secret ingredient. Let's put it like that. So in terms of culture, we literally designed our culture. So we do have a culture manifesto. It's printed on the walls when you enter our office. We have a big office that kind of is designed to kind of explain physically what is our business and let you learn how we do business as soon as you enter in the front door. And that's basically what drives everything we do. You can always relate to that. So having write a culture manifesto, it's super important. In that you can see mission, visions, but also another specific example of what we've designed in our culture is what we call the principles. We do split in 2. It's operating principles, so like how people need to behave in the office and as a professional, and leadership principles. So when you lead the team, how we expect you to behave as a leader. Let me just give you a few examples of our principles. So one is that we like, in terms of operating principles, we like to keep a blank desk policy, just to give you an idea. So we kind of want to have your mind completely free every day when you come to the office, if you can. At this moment, of course, we are fully smart working, but in general, we really like to kind of think in that really operational way. On the other side, for example, in the leadership principles, we do have a principle which is few but exceptional, is better than many but mediocre. So we really like to hire few people. If you want to decide, we want to hire few people, more senior, let's put it like that, with higher potential, not even senior in terms of age, but senior in terms of exposure to complex things, and versus hiring a lot of interns, for example. But that I gave you just few examples of how we kind of design the culture in many different aspects, and that comes through, for example, HR function and a lot of things. The second topic that I want to discuss with you is that you need to define and design your processes. Most of the processes, Ann-Christine already mentioned them, but I want to give you 3 examples of something different that we do. We have developed an academy with something like 30 events that any new hire that comes to the office can participate into. In those academies, we discuss a lot of topics, really from productivity superpowers, so how to manage emails and manage your calendar, to how to receive feedback, for example. So we really kind of defined working in our group, what does it mean operationally, so not only in concept. Another thing that really works super well is the working with. So any leader needs to define the working with paper, which is 1-pager, where they say exactly how they want to communicate with the team, what they do they expect from the team. Do they like to micromanage, or do they like to kind of get onboarded on specific topics and see the problem up front? So it's really like a working with the paper that allows you to kind of scale much faster the leadership skills of your team. The last point, it's something that Ann-Christine mentioned before. It's what we call the feedback 360. So once in a year, actually last month, all the team members gave feedback to all the leaders, and all the peers gave feedback to all, let's say, their teammates. That helps a lot to give you an idea of how the people in the office and in the company look at you. So what's the perception, and what you can do to improve. It's really practical. So we kind of track everyone on the operating principles that I explained before, and they kind of can get insightful feedback, and they do follow-ups. So we literally even design the follow-up that they do over time after any leader receives the 360 feedback. Last but not least, so I'm at the third topic. Just to remind, the first topic was design the culture. Second topic was design the process. The third topic is what we call the community approach. So we do consider the team as a community. And it's not like the team members that we hire, but also the freelancers that work with us, also the ambassadors of our communities, so everybody. And we do have a specific function in the group that works in engaging the community, so keeping the community live through social media, but especially through creating events. So we do have an event plan over the year that engages the community and let them know what is happening, what we are doing, how is it going in the group. They can participate in our all ends. We are super transparent in terms of approach, and that's part of our culture, again, that we defined before. And I think that's a really specific thing that we have in the group. And we have one function which is called ambassador and community, just to give you an idea how important it is for us. And it's usually super related to the CEO. So it's everybody kind of in any company we do have that function that is really a key company function. Last but not least, we do communicate a lot. So the community approach is similar to what Ann-Christine said before. If you start following us on Instagram, you can see exactly what happens in the office every day. We do share the results. We share what we are learning. We share everything. And that is becoming more and more like our Instagram page or LinkedIn page. It's becoming more and more a source of new candidates and new talent. Last but not least, just to kind of relate the points, we have a specific academy on personal branding, and so we teach our team members how to manage their Instagram page, their LinkedIn page, to kind of amplify not only themselves but also themselves inside of what is happening in our group. So just to wrap up, and then I'm finished. First topic is design your culture. If you are the founder, your culture, it's how you behave, and just try to kind of detach yourself from the day by day and define how what is acceptable at the company. So how people need to decide when you're not there. Second thing is design the process. So do not think that at scale everybody can decide as you would decide. Let them know and design the process accordingly on how you want to kind of define the hiring, the onboarding, and as Ann-Christine said, and all the process of let's say bringing the new team member inside the team. Third team, consider the team as a community. So they need to be engaged. Do not just focus on hiring them, but also keep them engaged as part of something bigger. Mission, vision, culture, it's also always related to consider the team as a community. I have a bonus track, Lorena, and I will let you start the discussion. The bonus track is that you, of course, need to pay fairly. But unfortunately, our experience is that the paycheck is, let's say, the salary is not anymore like what, especially younger generation are looking for. They need to see a growth in the salary, but not really a super competitive salary. They want to be paid.
Yeah, competitive. Yeah, competitive. Everyone needs to work for surviving, but I agree that young generations look more for other many things that we are going to see now. Thank you very much, Mattia. Very insightful too. Thanks for sharing your case. We are now going into the panel discussion. So we are bringing also Anne-Christine into the discussion. I had a few questions prepared just in case, but I've seen there were some coming from the audience. So let's focus on that, giving the answers the audience needs first. And in case we have time, we can also go through other questions. So first question from the audience goes to Anne-Christine. Anne-Christine, do you recommend we to be more or less friendly for new hires over the testing period? Typically, I prefer being friendly and frank all through the process. However, my co-founder has another strategy. We don't know about that strategy, but it would be your recommendation.
So I think what I would do is just be how it always is. So not put on like a fake friendly welcome, and I know the strategy, but by being really tough initially to see if people make it or break it, but I don't think that that's the right strategy either. I think you can burn a lot of people from that. So I think it's more important to just be like how the company actually is and treat everyone the same rather than create like some fake culture or welcome committee when people join. That's what I would recommend. And I just want to say one thing, Mattia, I just love everything that you guys are doing. I mean, I just want to say that is how it should be done. So yeah, I just wanted to
Thanks. I have a few tips actually, but I wanted to squeeze them.
Yeah.
Definitely very, very inspiring to all of us, and agree with you and Christine. I think let's be natural over onboarding processes. Let's just be natural. I think from time to time we try to take the streams like, let's be super energetic and amazing teams so they fall in love with us from the first day. But then that's something, if you are not authentic, that is something you can't maintain in the time. So finally people get frustrated because they don't find a real person behind that onboarding. So I agree with you. Let's be natural. Let's try to be close to people, but not fake friendly or not fake tough just to make them break or survive. No, so yeah, I understand One Day Group also has a very friendly approach when you join the company. No, Mattia?
Yeah. In general, we do. For example, we do invite all candidates half a day in the office, exactly as Anne-Christine said before. So they do spend some time. If those are like key roles, like CMOs, C-level roles, we do actually try to invite people in our advisory board for a while. For example, I did it myself. So when I met Paolo, which is the founder of the group, I spent 6 months basically just going there, helping them, knowing the team. So it's especially C-level guys. It's what changes the game in the company. So it needs to take time. So it's not one day from the other. Actually, yes, we have a really friendly culture, but given that it's so distilled and so clear and so transparent, sometimes people do not really like it. So even if you kind of explain them how it works, they do not believe it, and they see that the company is that transparent. We do speak openly about everything, and especially if you come from a certain type of background, that becomes really unsustainable. So it's not that easy. Huh?
One thing I liked from Talent Garden when I joined compared to other companies I work for, and is related to one thing that Anne-Christine said, is even involving candidates before joining. So, for example, I remember I joined Talent Garden like a September. So Davide, our CEO, was involving me on things, I don't know, from July or August. He was involving me like in meetings, in overviews of things. He was sharing materials. So when I joined, of course, I was a new joiner, but it was like not so new joiner, no, because I already had my kind of email address created. I was already receiving some information. So it was much smoothly onboarding. So I think Anne-Christine had a very good point. Let's just feel them part of the team even before joining, if possible. No, so that is a super nice tip. Okay, second question we have from the audience. Anne-Christine, could you elaborate on the top points to align with candidates? And do you have any tips on structuring career progression?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of aligning, I'm guessing that is maybe in terms of the culture and the tasks. Does it say anything about what it is aligning with the candidates in the process? Or else I'll just assume that is.
I would potentially say on the role, functions, and all of that, because you said that sometimes we go crazy to the market trying to find the candidates without even stopping and spending the time to really define and potentially align with the candidates. No, in a second step, I think it's related to that.
Yes, and I think one thing that I always recommend, so again, to align things, you need to know what are you aligning about. So that's why, going back to really understanding the role, but also defining the culture. And I think something that's really important here is there is no right or wrong culture. And I think that, and again, also going back to the question before, should we be tough? Should we be nice? You need to be yourself because, over time, people find out reality. And I think it's better to find out before people join rather than after. So when it comes to like aligning the position and also the culture of the company, I think, the more transparent, the better. And I think a lot of people, they're afraid of like that they'll scare people off with, or they have an idea of what's good, what's bad. What do people like? What do people not? The thing is that everyone is motivated by something different. Maybe someone wants flexibility. And I think a lot of people think, oh, you get so much responsibility, you get so much flexibility. There are lots of candidates who don't want that. They want to be told what to do. Because they get stressed if there's too much freedom and flexibility, because then they don't know what to do. So there's no wrong, some people think, ooh, we work really long hours. Let's hide it till people join, and let's just say, oh, no, we don't work long hours here. And then they join. Once they signed, then they can just work 24/7. But the thing is, some people, they love to work long hours and others don't. So the thing, you have to just be open about how it is. And then you will hire candidates that actually like that or who align with that. And then you won't get into problems when they actually join and when they work for the company. Just share as much as possible. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing right or wrong to share.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any tips, any of you both, on structuring career progression in the startup world? That is a very key topic that you mentioned before, Anne-Christine, that young generations really look for career progression. I think that is a very tough topic for someone that is 3 members, 4 members, then 5, 6, and then everyone really wants to grow. No, I would love to hear from you both any tips on career progression in the startup world. Would you like to go first?
Christine, you start.
Yeah. Okay. I'll share what so initially when I started Ethan, I had people, then everyone had the same title and the same role. They were all just consultants. But then you find out then when people have been there for like a year or two, they're like, okay, what's next? So then we divided into different levels. And I think a lot of people are with startups, because one of the attractions about a startup is there's a flat hierarchy. So then people start to be like, no titles, no levels. But for people who are ambitious, they want to work towards something. So I actually found out that it helped if there were different things they could achieve. So putting in different titles, even if it's just something that you start off as a junior consultant, then you're a consultant, and then you're a senior consultant. Because and what does that mean? And it can't just be a title. You can't just have like fake titles that sound good. You also have to change the area of responsibility that they have in each position. But usually it makes sense, because I think also what I learned maybe the hard way is maybe you can also give like a lot of people who are driven, they want lots of responsibility. You can also give them too much responsibility so they drown. So have a plan with what are you doing when? Start with training. Maybe you have a few months training in an area, and then you get more and more responsibility along the way. And then just define it, because usually it's the same for all the roles. I know initially if you're just a few people, maybe it's a bit challenging, but as soon as you have departments and teams, then it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Christine. Mattia, any tips from your side?
Yeah, so in my experience, actually, it really depends on the stage of the company, because it's at really initial phase of the company, there's one approach, and the more you grow, it becomes more structured. So we are at the phase where we do have career guidelines so you can decide if you want to be more specialized in specific roles, like in marketing, for example, or you want to be a more general manager role, and that have different like bandwidth in terms of salaries, etc. But that's really structured. I wouldn't do that until you are probably 150 people, to be honest. So, but let's discuss also the first, let's say, 10 to 20 team members. I think the hardest thing is not to kind of promise incredible growth at the beginning. That's the easiest part. I personally did have a lot of problems because in the past I sold the position, as Anne-Christine said, but I also sold the growth of the position, which didn't happen, to be honest. So be really, let's say, transparent to yourself and understand that the company changes probably most of the times much faster than the people. And at a certain point, there might be someone that already has the skills, has been there, done that thing on a difficult situation. So the company needs to hire that person, and maybe you cannot really grow as fast as the company is growing. But in general, I think it's easy to, so it's really consistent to say this is the opportunity, this could be the growth path that you can have, but it's not like signed on the marble. It's something that will develop as the company will develop. It's really like that, because in the end, otherwise we always try to sell. It's always easier. It's fantastic. You hire someone in marketing as the first stage, and you say, oh, you can be the CMO of the company, of course, but you need to be aware as a new team member that it could be, but it also could not be. So it's really up to you to kind of get that. Nobody will kind of give it the CMO role as a gift. Let's put it like that. You need to own it, own the position. So let me summarize with that.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you both. I think this is a tough topic when young generations are looking for that career progression. Some of the times they require us, the startup, the founders, to have kind of more structured programs and approach. But I always say to people, well, we are not one of the big four that 2 years junior, after 2 years you become senior, after 2 years you become a manager, and so that, as Mattia said, that's something we can't sign in marble, because mainly we all make the business grow. And when we get the business grow, of course, more opportunities will rise. But for a startup, it's very hard to promise after 2 years or after some achievements, you get a position when you are of a determinant side and you don't have all those positions. But they will be created for sure when the business grows. So my advice here would be to have more flexible approaches to career progression, that everyone owns their own career progression, of course, in talks with managers, in talks with people and cultures, but everyone owns and develops together with people and culture or managers the career progression. No, we are trying to also incorporate in Talent Garden the culture of everyone's, and it's moving from all the traditional, everything is structured, everything in boxes, to more, we all own our future, we all own our career progression. So let's make it together, no? Without those critical boxes. We have another
Lorena,
question.
Can I add one thing to this? Because I think that's super key, especially on the younger generations. It's something that I see that is happening more and more. Just do not be afraid on have like hard thoughts with your leadership. If you want to go in a specific direction, just discuss that. So openly, if you want to be if you want to focus on content marketing, for example, sorry, I always discuss about marketing, but that's part of our DNA. So if you want to be focused on content marketing and you started in performance marketing, which is a completely different role, just discuss that. So be open. Do not kind of try to fit yourself in roles that you don't like. It's nonsense, especially at the earlier phase of your careers.
Very good tip, and I would totally support that, to have very open conversations with management when you are keen for something. Sometimes we just wait for our manager to tell us, okay, you are ready to give the same job, the next jump. But I would encourage again every one of us and every one of our employees to just take the lead and bring the discussion on the table, no? Because knowing your ambitions, knowing your aspirations, we can all work together to support that to happen in the future, ideally, when those business opportunities come. Guys, any books on corporate culture do you recommend for us? I have one that is Let Your Team Go Surfing. And that is from Patagonia. That is from Patagonia founder. I loved that book when I read it, and I love the title, Let Your Team Go Surfing. So it's about promoting that culture of, just put people in the right places and be aware of what really makes your people passionate about, and just put people in the right places to really enjoy what they do and have the flexibility to do what they love. Any recommendations from any of you on corporate culture?
One that I quite liked was Drive by Daniel Pink. That was more about motivation. So I thought that one was quite good. It's a while ago, but I read it, but I remember it as being good. But other than that, I love, the sun is, I'm trying to dodge the sun here. I love reading biographies or autobiographies or biographies of entrepreneurs. So people who have done it before and built companies up from scratch, and then their journey and learning from what they did. I love all of those books, like Shoe Dog and Zappos and the Starbucks book, and all of them. Learning from others.
Learning from others.
Yeah, I completely agree on the biographies, to be honest. That's the preferred ones. There are also the Netflix books, which are like the corporate culture milestones of our era. Plus there's one that I really like a lot, which is Growth Mindset, which is basically how we built the corporate culture that we have, like everything related to keep on growing and learning. So not like everybody's always at the top. We just need to learn over time.
Thank you. Very last question. We have just 2 minutes, so very last question. Any further tips on getting to know cultural fit on candidates? So we all said how culture is so important in the core of all we do. How we can really ensure our candidates over the hiring process are the perfect cultural fit? Any tips? And Christine?
Well, I always say, spend time with them. Another thing that we do is, again, there are no guarantees for anything, but it's about minimizing risk. We do personality tests as well. So I think it's, maybe it's a personal preference. Some love it, some don't. I only recommend it if you actually use it and work with it and understand or learn how to read the results of a personality test. It doesn't make sense to just give it to candidates just for the sake of it, and then you have a look and then, oh yeah, that looks good. So really work with it. So yeah, we use personality tests as well as spend time with people. But there are no guarantees with people.
No guarantees, but
unfortunately.
Spending time with people for me would be the top level tip. Mattia, any other one?
Yeah, I think time is the topic. We did actually do one thing on the process. So we kind of reversed the hiring process, and it's only on the leader of a team. But then people and culture does have like the veto in case of they do not see cultural fit. So usually the way we hire people is that we kind of bring them in, but before doing the offer, people and culture can always say no because there's no culture fit. That gives a lot of power to culture in terms of the within the hiring process. But definitely, if they have spent time with someone before and you have learned them, met them, they've seen how you work, that's the best way to kind of do a proper hiring.
There are even
I have
companies.
another comment.
There are even companies that bring their candidates for 1 full week working with them just to explore. And Christine, very last comment.
Yeah. So I'm also familiar with the 1 week, but not everyone has that time. But it's great idea. Reference checks. Always do reference checks. I always recommend do at least 2, and then during the reference checks, you can also ask, how do they work? How do they communicate? What culture are they? I'm actually a bit surprised how many people hire without doing reference checks, and I'm sure there are lots of people out there who have done that. Do a few reference checks, and it's also use it to understand how the candidate will be successful in the organization. What does the candidate like? What do they thrive with? How can you get the best out of them? So yeah, that's always a good way to do it as well.
Super. Many thanks, both of you. Thanks to the others for the comments. Donatella, totally agree with you. The other side should be open to. Let's hope all our leaders get more and more open to that, saying that some they are not, but hopefully they will be. Thanks, Mattia. Thanks, and Christine, for being with us today and sharing these very nice insights with all of us. Thanks to you all for being with us today. We are just ending this event. It was quite short. It was an hour, but for me, it passed so many thanks, guys. Just a reminder for the audience, also join us for our future events that we are playing now in the screen on 10th of June at Taggers Connect on how to keep our business model simple, 29th of June, transparency in health, and of course our online courses, more in-depth training programs to meet the real needs of the job market. So we will be waiting for you there. And also a reminder to fill into our survey so you can scan the QR code we are placing now in the screen, this one. So with your help, with your feedback, for sure we will keep shaping our future events for being even more powerful. Thanks all for joining today. Thank you. Bye. Ciao, ciao.